Okay, welcome. We're on Daf Daled Amud Aleph, and the Gemara is discussing. The Gemara subject is how do you know Kiddushay Kesef? The source for Kiddushay Kesef. And even though we had a couple of days ago that Kicha is the Ephraim, but the Gemara here brought a Rav that said from Amar Ria that it says V'yasachina Mein Kasef, and Ein Kasef was extra, and therefore we learned out that Yesh Kesef in Makam Acher, that even though when Amavriya, when she comes of age, she becomes an adult, so she leaves, she gets free from her servitude without paying any money. But a smashmat is extra pasuk. It didn't have to say 2 times. She goes for free without money. Free means without money. So it's double. So in Kasef taught us that Yesh Kasef Makamacher is another place where someone's leaving the jurisdiction of her someone's jurisdiction, which is her father's, and it does cost money. There's a way that the money is the way to get her out, and that would mean that the husband gives the father money, and she leaves his jurisdiction and becomes married to him. That was a source that the Gemara learned out Kedusha Kesef. The Gemara is going to continue with it today still. The Gemara asked the side kasha that you needed for something else, but you learn out that even not only a Bulgaris, when she becomes 12 and a half, does she leave her father, does Amavriya leave servitude? She lives servitude even by Narus, even when she's 12, when she becomes a Gedola. If the kasha was how can you learn 2 things from here? You learn out, if you have to learn that out, how do you have both? The Gemara said because there's extra yud, it didn't have to have the yud for the word ein kasef. So really, I should have gone a few lines later, till the 2 dots yesterday, but it was already time for mincha. So we stopped short. So I'd just like to finish it off. The Gemara is the kasha now. The itzrich, up to the word v'itzrich. V'itzrich l'michtav kiddushin kiddusha lavia, v'itzrich l'michtav ma'as yadeh lavia. We have 2 psukim now. And the Gemara wants to know why can't you learn out one from the other? One is the Gabi Kiddushin, that the Kiddushin money for this Nara goes to her father. And the other one is to tell us that also her earnings go to her father. Yesterday the Gemara brought a drasha that just like a Alma, maidservant, her money, her earnings go to her master. So too, the earnings of a daughter go to her father. And the Gemara wants to know that these are 2 subjects. We could have learned that one from the other. That the Kiddushin money goes to the father. We're talking about a Naira. Kiddushin money goes to her father, and her earnings go to her father. Why can't you learn out one from the other? There must be a spar. Why, if you know one, you wouldn't know the other. That's what the one wants to know. The one says it's necessary to write that both the Kiddushin money goes to her father, and also that her earnings go to her father. Why can't you learn one from the other? There's a spar for each one that maybe doesn't apply to the other one. If it would have only said that when someone marries her, the money goes to the father, the Kiddushin money, the Shabbat fruit that goes to the father, you might think because she didn't work for it, she didn't do anything. She's being taken in marriage and it costs money, so it maybe goes to the father. But by the earnings that she actually worked, maybe since she worked, she deserves to get the money also. So first you got to say no, that earnings go to the father. And the other way, there's also a spot the other way. If it only would say that by the earnings go to the father, you might think because the earnings have to do with her support, that the father is supporting her. And since the father supports her, so that's why the Torah gave him her earnings. But Kiddushin, that has nothing to do with the support. The support and the earnings go together. They go hand in hand. Usually a person earns in order to support himself, and here the father is supporting the daughter. So that would be a reason why the Torah gave him her earnings. But Kiddushin has nothing to do with support. It's like an outside issue. It's a side issue that when someone marries the girl, so he has to give money. So you might think that over there it goes to her. It's not in payment of anything. It's not in balancing anything. So you might think that that would go to herself. But mashmallah, that's why we have to have 2 psukim. So that's the halacha that the earnings of a nara, functions of Bulgarians, they go to the father, and also the Kiddushin. If someone marries her and gives a Shabbat Pruta, also that Shabbat Pruta goes to the father until she's 12 and a half. The next sugya comes in Mamash Aga, the Gemara Kasha. That's the point. That's the back up to where we're holding. The Gemara said you learn out that Kiddushin is with Kesef and goes to the father. So the pasuk of Yatzachina Mein Kesef, or talking about Amar Ria, that a girl who's sold as a maidservant. So when she becomes an adult, she gets released from her servitude, and it says a double lashon Yatzachina Mein Kesef. So you learn out from there that there's another place where there is money to get out of the servitude or out of the jurisdiction, which is when someone marries her as a naira. So money goes to there's money, and the money goes to the father. And the kasha was that the pasuk is used up already because of Bagros and Naros. And that was the kasha the Gemara said, it has extra yud. That's why I can learn out two halachas. So when does the maidservant go free? When she becomes a Nara, not only a Bulgaris, even when she becomes a Nara on her 12th birthday with maturity, physical maturity of two saras, so she goes free. And that was the drush of Yatsachinam Eliyame Bagrus, in Kasaf Eliyame Naras. The first time the Bryce would mean, like the Gemara is going to say soon, that if it only would have said one time, Yatsachinam, then I would have known only when she's a complete maturity, that she became a Bulgaris. But I wouldn't have known that even when she's a Naira at age 12, she already goes free. So it says another person King Kasef to say that even from Naras also she goes free. But the Gemara is asking as if he says, as if you say the person King Kasef says that it's in Naras. If you know Naras, then you know that person have to say Bagras. If she goes free at 12, you don't have to say that she goes free at 12 and a half. She already went free at 12. It doesn't really say the word Naras. It says like two psukim. But the Gemara is going to say in a minute. But so far the Gemara is the kasha with Litvech one and Naras will avoid Bagras. If Bagras is 12 and a half, let's say, and Naras is 12. So if it says she goes free at 12, you don't need a person to say she goes free at 12 and a half. They both teach each other, learn on top of each other. That means that one alone, that both psukim are really par. There is no implication in the word chinam or in kasef. Doesn't say bagras, doesn't say nagras, doesn't say anything. It does that she goes free. She goes free for nothing, for no money. But it doesn't say any age. So the pasuk Gemara means to say that if it would have only said one pasuk, we would have taken the smaller chiddush. It says two pasukim, say learn a bigger chiddush. If it would have said only she goes free, so you would have said the smallest chiddush, meaning she goes free at 12 and a half. You have a second pasuk, so it says she goes free even earlier. Not that there's any much more. If the pasuk would have said beferish, she goes free at Naros at 12 years old, you surely don't need a pasuk to say she goes free at 12 and a half. But it doesn't say that. It doesn't say 12. It doesn't say 12 and a half. It says she goes free. She goes free. So if you only would have had one pasuk, you would have said the smallest chiddush, that she goes free at 12 and a half. And you didn't have the pasuk to say she goes free even earlier. So that's how we figure out that it means 12. That was Rabbi's answer. The horse Pashab Shat in the Brisa. And he brings another example where you see such a thing, that there's a pasuk that tells you something that's neutral, power, doesn't have any implication. The fact that it has two psukim, say learn out the bigger chiddush. Here the one is talking about mididav atosha v'sachim. This is talking about the din that a kohen eats truma, and also it says that as Evet Kanani, Miknas Kaspo also could eat truma. How about the Evet Ivri of a kohen? The kohen has an Evet Ivri, a Jewish slave. A Jewish slave is really not a slave; he's just a worker. He works for 6 years and then he goes free. And if he wants to stay longer, so he becomes neartzai, he works forever, which means until Yovel. And the Pasuk wants to say that Ebed Ivri does not eat truma. Thank you. Maybe just on the other side. Expect everyone. If you can make it swing. Okay, it's swinging. I think it goes back and forth now. Now it's swinging back and forth. Okay, thank you. So a Kohen's Evet Kanani eats truma because he belongs to the Kohen, Miknas Kaspo. A Kohen's Evet Ivri does not eat truma. There are two kinds of Evet Ivri. There's a temporary Evet Ivri and there's a permanent Evet Ivri. There's a person that says that the worker of a Kohen does not eat truma. The Tanya Toshav Zakoni Kinyan Olam. I'm sorry for bothering everybody. Toshav Zakoni Kinyan Olam. Sach is Zakoni Kinyan Shanim. The pasuk says that Evet Ivri, the Evet Ivri doesn't eat. It's okay. I feel comfortable. It's good. And that's okay. Thank you. So we're talking about a Kohen's Evet eating truma. Kohen can eat truma. His family can eat truma. The whole Kohen, his wife. How about the Eved? So Eved Kanani could eat truma, miknas kaspo, but here it says that Eved Ivri of a Kohen does not eat truma. It has two psukim, and that tells you not only a temporary Eved Ivri, even a permanent Eved Ivri also doesn't eat truma. The way the pasuk described it was by saying Toshav V'Sachir. Both of them mean that he's working for him, and it says that Toshav V'Sachir don't eat truma. Tanya Toshav Zakoni Kinyan Olam. Toshav means a permanent Eved Ivri, which means that Tel Yobel Nirza, and Sachir Ze Konoi Kinyan Shonim. A Sachir means he's the Eved Ivri who's only for 6 years, 6-year Eved Ivri, and he's a temporary Eved Ivri, we'll call him, and he doesn't eat truma. Now, of course, which is a big chiddush not to eat truma? The permanent Eved Ivri, even a permanent Eved Ivri doesn't eat truma. So the kasha is, why do you have to say two psukim? Just tell me that the permanent Eved Ivri doesn't eat truma, and I would know surely a temporary Eved Ivri doesn't eat truma. Yoma Tosha V'la Yoma Sachir. Let the pasuk just say the bigger chiddush, and I know the smaller chiddush. If a permanent Eved Ivri doesn't eat truma, surely a temporary Eved Ivri doesn't eat truma. If a permanent Eved Ivri does not eat truma, surely a temporary Eved Ivri doesn't eat. The answer is it doesn't say beferish a permanent Eved Ivri. It doesn't say those words. Ilu Kain, if it would have just said one word, a toshav, whatever, toshav doesn't mean anything. Toshav doesn't say beferish if it means a permanent or a temporary. So if it would have said only one pasuk, toshav zakoni kinyan shanim, that the toshav means that he's a temporary Eved Ivri, and that's the reason that he doesn't eat truma. If he'd be a permanent Eved Ivri on Yirtza, then he would eat truma. That's why you have two psukim, so you have to say a big chiddush, not because the word says that, but because you have a ribu, you have an extra pasuk. Also, eno ochel. What did the Gemara do? It brought an example of a place where you have to have two psukim to teach you a bigger chiddush. Of course, if it would have said the bigger chiddush in beferish, he wouldn't have had to have two psukim. He could have said the bigger chiddush. But the point is that it doesn't have any mashmos. It has no implication in the word that it means the bigger chiddush. So by the fact that by virtue of saying a double lashon, he said two things. So that's how it teaches you not only the small chiddush, even the big chiddush. And that's what the Gemara wants to do over here also. That there's no mashmos in the word hinam or ein kosef that it means 12 years old, 12 and a half. Of course, if it would have said 12 years old, it doesn't have to say and 12 and a half also. But 12 is a bigger chiddush than 12 and a half. She went free from 12. But the fact that it doesn't say that, it's just the power of a word, it's an extra word. So if it would have been only one extra word, you would have said the small chiddush. She goes out at 12 and a half. So it says an extra word, so now you know that's even 12. That's Rabba's answer. Seems to be the Pashup Pshat. That would be the simple understanding of the Brisa. But Abai is not happy with that. Amalei Abai midami. It's not a comparison to the case of the Eved Ivri eating truma. Hasam trei gufinin. Over there, there's two bodies, literally two bodies. It means there are two people. And the pasuk says that temporary Eved Ivri and a permanent Eved Ivri, they both don't eat truma. If it would have, even if the Gemara wants to say that this, we find sometimes that the pasuk will say something that's not a chiddush. That's okay. The pasuk sometimes says something, but the Gemara is going to call. We'll see right away inside the chinami kasef achman the toshav nirza. Even if it would have said, Rabbi says, if it would have said beferish that a permanent Eved Ivri and a temporary Eved Ivri don't eat truma, which would be a kasha. All you have to say both of them for. If a permanent Eved Ivri doesn't eat truma, surely a temporary Eved Ivri doesn't eat truma. But it wouldn't bother us so terribly. Even if it would have said beferish that a permanent Eved Ivri, a nirza. Nirza means he's got drilled in his ear. That's the pasuk that says v'ratzah adonav says no b'matzeya. So even if it would have said beferish that a permanent Eved Ivri doesn't eat, and then it would say v'ada kasav idach, and it would have said that temporary Eved Ivri doesn't eat truma, which is pashut. This halacha of a temporary Eved Ivri not eating truma would have been a kal v'chomer. It wouldn't have been terrible. This is a famous expression, this one line. That's something which you could have learned out from a kal v'chomer. Sometimes the pasuk goes to the trouble to say it anyway. It means it doesn't bother us so terribly that the pasuk writes something which you could have figured out. It's not such. Sometimes the Gemara tries to avoid it, but it isn't terrible that the pasuk writes something and you could have figured out with a kal v'chomer. So even though it says, the Maaseh says two psukim, and even if it would have said beferish that a permanent Eved Ivri and a temporary Eved Ivri don't eat truma, it wouldn't have been terrible. So that's okay. Over here, if the pasuk would never say that a 12-and-a-half-year-old girl goes free and a 12-year-old girl goes free. That doesn't make sense. Because when she's 12 years old, she left. there is no 12 and a half girl. There's no 12 and a quarter girl that's still Amar Bria. So he's not happy with what Rabbi said. Rabbi said that you have to have two psukim in order to push up the deadline. When she goes free, the finishing line, that you have to push it up. If only would have one pasuk, I would have thought the finishing line is 12 and a half. So it says another pasuk to say no, she goes free even by 12. But Rabbi is not happy with that because the pasuk should have better, like Rashi explains, it should have said the favorish, a nara. It should have said she goes free by nara. Say one pasuk straight to the point. To say two psukim to learn out that the finishing line is earlier, one pasuk would have told you 12 and a half. The second pasuk says no, it's 12. That's Rabbi doesn't like that. Rabbi doesn't like that the pasuk should say two things in order to tell you the bigger chiddush. If the two things that the pasuk tell you are two separate things, that each one is true, that a permanent evidivri goes free, they eats truma, and a temporary evidivri eats truma, even though you could have learned that one from the other. But it's not terrible that the pasuk writes something which is pashut. You could have learned it out by yourself, but the pasuk tells it to you. But to say that a 12-and-a-half-year-old girl goes free and a 12-year-old girl goes free, that doesn't make sense because once you went out at 12, there is no Amar Bria at age 12 and a half anymore. So Abai is not happy. So the Kash comes back again. Why did the pasuk have to write two psukim, Yatzachinam and in Kosef, in order to teach you that Amar Bria goes free at 12? It should have said it in a shorter way of just saying a naira, just saying a 12-year-old goes free. So that's Abai's problem against Rava. El Amar Abaye. So again, what are we looking for? If the pasuk already taught us somehow that a 12-year-old goes free, that a girl who's a maidservant goes free at the age 12, you don't need a pasuk to say that she goes free at 12 and a half, a bagros. So Abai says, I'll tell you, there's a chiddush. Beggar the islanders means usually the regular healthy girl, so she first gets maturity, pubic maturity at the age of 12. And then she becomes more mature, with breast formation, she becomes a bulgaris, she becomes a completely mature. But there's such thing as an islandess. An islandess would be a sterile, that's how they usually translate it. And it means that she doesn't have simone naras. That at 12 years old, she doesn't get 2 hairs. But eventually she also becomes an adult. Does she stay a katana forever? A girl who doesn't have 2 hairs. She's 12, 13, 14, she doesn't have 2 hairs. So is she never going to be considered a gedola? So it says in I think it's a Nida, Gemara Nida, it says that she becomes a gedola by the age 20. And the Machok is 18 or 20, she becomes a gedola by 20. So she jumps. All those years she was a katana. I think the Gemara talks about if you go retroactively or not. Once you find out by 20 she's an islandess, so then does she become a gedola at that point? So it's possible to go from katnas to bagros. Usually it goes katana, and then she becomes a naira, then she becomes a bulgaris. Usually till 12, she's a katana, 12 to 12 and a half, she's a naira, and then 12 and a half, she's a bulgaris. But this girl that didn't have the simone naras, she didn't have 2 hairs, so then she went straight from katana to a bulgaris at the age 20. So that's what it's telling you over here, that this girl that was sold as a maidservant, if she didn't become a naira, and she went straight to bagros at the age 20, she also goes free. So that's called that she's sterile, and it means that it's not, why can't she have shechshah? So here's but the islandess that we're talking about is that she doesn't have physical maturity in the way that she doesn't have period. It also means she cannot have children. She's not going to be able to have children if she's an islandess. And here's talking about, might be different kinds of islandess, but here's talking about that she doesn't have the simonim of maturity. And she goes, at age 20, she becomes a gedola. So, no, doesn't mean child but she's a gedola. So, and she goes free. If she was a maidservant, when she's a maidservant, so she didn't have naras. And it's true. If every time a bulgaris only has to go through, first has to have been a nara, then it wouldn't have been necessary for the pasuk to say that a nara gets released from her servitude and a bulgaris. Of course, a bulgaris, she already got free from a naras. But here's a case where she didn't have naras, so she gets free at bagros. So. I don't know. Some that the Chamena Benaris tape with Bagros low tape. I would have thought that the girl only goes released from a servitude if she becomes a Nara, but just because she became a Bulgaris, I might have thought she doesn't go free. That she does go free. So Abaya's kasha was and Rava that the 12-year-old and the 12-and-a-half-year-old is the same person, is a chad gufa. Every time she's going to be a 12 and a half, she first was a 12. and she therefore would have gone free already. So it's not the Torah wouldn't have expressed itself that way by telling you two psukim in order to teach you even a nara. So Abaye found that there are two people. One is a nara, and one is a bulgaris who was never a nara, and therefore it's two people, and therefore you the pasuk does say both. Maskif long, last narrow line. Maskif lamav Ravashi. Lav kal v'chomeru. The Gemara still he's bothered that the Gemara is going to say soon that this kasha lahor doesn't make sense because Abaye said, well, just to get Akdama, Abaye said I don't mind the kal v'chomer if both of them are possible entities by themselves. Like the Gemara said before, by permanent evidivri and by a temporary evidivri, even though of course it's a kal v'chomer. If a permanent evidivri cannot eat truma of his master, so surely a temporary evidivri cannot eat. That didn't bother Abaye as long as it's two people, two entities. So it's not a problem that's a couple homer. But it does bother him that every 12-and-a-half-year-old was always first a 12-year-old. So the Torah wouldn't have said it that way. The pasuk wouldn't have told you two psukim in order to tell you the bigger chiddush. But Mabra Bashi is bothered. He's bothered that he could have learned out one from the other. You don't need a pasuk to say that a Bulgaris gets released from her master. Abaye just when he's saying there's a chiddush that a beggar, the islandess, that she became gedola, she became a Bulgaris at the age 20. There's a pasuk wants to tell you that she goes free, and also told you that a nara goes free. But Amar Bravashi says that it's a kal v'chomer, which is a more of a reason to leave someone's jurisdiction. So Simonim when she becomes a nara, she doesn't leave the father's jurisdiction. When a girl becomes 12 years old, like a birthday party, 12 years old, it doesn't mean that she left the father's jurisdiction. She's still in the father's jurisdiction for all halachas until 12-and-a-half. But the only thing that changed, we saw yesterday, what changed was as far as the Dorim that till now the father could have nullified the nether by himself, and now if there's an oros, if she's an oros, he needs the oros also. But otherwise, nothing changes. Everything else, all the earnings and the findings, and there were some other things also I forgot, that it still goes to the father until age 12-and-a-half. Kiddushin also we said goes to the father till 12-and-a-half. So the narus, simani narus, don't take her out of the jurisdiction of the father. But it does take you out of the jurisdiction of the other when she becomes an nara. That was saying, now we learned that from this pasuk over here. We're saying that it does take you out of the jurisdiction of her master if she was sold into servitude. So she does go free when she's 12. But Bagrus is more of a releasing than Narus because Bagrus does take her out of the rishus of her father. So which is a bigger, make a pivot, which is a bigger Yitzia, which is more koach to get released, Narus or Bagrus? Bagrus is more than Narus because Narus cannot take her out of the jurisdiction of the father, and Bagrus does. So if Narus takes her out of the rishus of the Adon, surely the Bulgaris will surely leave the jurisdiction of the master. What's Mabra Avashi's kasha? That you don't need a pasuk. You told me beggar the islanders, you don't need a pasuk for that. I could have figured it out on my own. If the pasuk would tell me that a nara gets released from her master, then surely a Bulgaris gets released from her master. It's true. We took away the kasha that not every Bulgaris was once a nara. True. So Abai found that there's going to be a Bulgaris who was not once a nara. But in the halacha, in the svara, I can figure out on my own that a Bulgaris would get released from her master because even Narus takes her out of her master. Surely Bulgaris, not because she already passed the stage of Narus. Just the entity of Bulgaris surely is enough to take her out of her master if Narus is enough to take her out. That's a Mabra Avashi's kasha. They wasn't to come back that Mabra Avashi's kasha doesn't make sense because Abai was okay to have a kal v'chomer as long as they're two different entities. The same way by the permanent evidivri and the temporary evidivri, there wasn't a problem to Abai. It's true, it's a kal v'chomer, but let's say the asher kal v'chomer for cost of lakra. That doesn't bother Abai. So Abai, who said that there's two entities, there's a nara and there's a beggar of the island, since it's two entities, so Abai should be happy. Mabra Rashi is not happy, and Rashi right away tells us that this kasha is like so obvious. We should ask the kasha right away. Rashi tells us the Gemara is going to ask it in a second. So we'll continue with the Gemara's flow until Amud Beis. Then the Gemara is going to ask this kasha. That an islandess, that a beggar of the islandess, a 20-year-old islandess, that she goes free from the master at the age to when she becomes a Bulgaris, that's not a chiddush. Even an hour takes her out of her master. Surely but Bargus takes her out of her master. But Chiddush, Zvina means sale. Ikar Zvina the the actual sale of the islandess means, I didn't translate it yet, that's what saying Dagdama. But the translation is the sale. It means that Barbara Rashi says the fact that she goes free from her master is not a Chiddush. The Chiddush is that she comes into her master. The fact Chiddush is that she can be sold in the first place. If we know that she could be sold, there wouldn't be a chiddush that she goes free. We know even a narus takes her out of her master. Surely Bagus takes her out of her master. But the chiddush is that she's the sale of the island is that there's such a thing as a sale, that the father could sell her. It could be that the sale is not a sale at all. A father has a right to sell his daughter only if she is going to become a naira. I might have thought that only a girl who's going to eventually go free with narus, that's a sale. She could be sold until Naras. But a girl who's not going to have Simone in Naras because she's an islandess, maybe the sale's not a sale at all. So that's where there's a necessity of Kamash Malan. Kamash Malan what? Kamash Malan Yasachina, that she goes free. If the pasuk, the way the pasuk expressed that she gets sold by the fact that the pasuk says how she goes free. The pasuk says she goes free with 20 years old when she becomes Simone Bagris. So obviously she was sold. So the pasuk, that's where the pasuk chose to tell us that she could be sold by saying that she gets free, she gets released at the age of Bagris. So my Rashi is happy. What happened? Just to sum it up. Is the pasuk V'yasachina mein Kasef, and the Gemara says that is a Rashi saying not only Bogeres, even a Nara. Pasuk means not only a 12.5-year-old, even a 12-year-old. And the kasha is, of course, if a 12-year-old goes free, surely 12.5. Rabbi says it's true. If it would have said Beferish 12, I wouldn't have had to say 12.5. But it doesn't say Beferish. So the fact that it says two psukim, so that we'll figure out that it's telling you two kedushin, not only a 12.5, even at a 12. Abai didn't like that because the pasuk wouldn't say something in two stages if it doesn't have any halos. It never happens. That the 12.5 is never going to happen because when she's 12, she's free. So Abai said there is going to be a case of a beggar islandess that she doesn't become a Bulgarian until age 20. My Ravashi is still bothered that it's still a Kavachomer. And now the Gemara on top of the line asks, well, my Ravashi don't have a lot of Kavachomer. My Ravashi was bothered that it's a Kavachomer. If you know that a Nara goes free, surely a Bulgarian goes free. Not because she became 12 already. We're talking about an islandess who never became 12. That at the age 12, she wasn't mature. But if the halach is that a Narus takes her, releases her, so surely Bagrus at age 20 is going to release her. And it was asking, what's your kasha? We said that it's possible the Torah could say something which is simple. Abai wasn't bothered by that. You have a permanent David and surely a temporary David. That's not a kasha, even though it's a Kabul Homer, the pasuk is going to say it. So too, if you could say that a Nara goes free, and surely a beggar islandess goes free. That's okay. Abai didn't bother Abai. So why is Marbra Ravashi bothered by it? And he had to invent this answer that it's true. We would have known that she goes free, but we wouldn't have known she becomes evident in the first place. So the kasha is not a kasha because the pasuk is allowed to say something that would have been learned out with a kavach homer. The Gemara answers, it's true that sometimes the Torah will write something that was not necessary, but usually we'd like to say that the Torah didn't write it for nothing. So if there's a possible answer, so we welcome the answer. So the teretz is better than the kasha, meaning that the kasha wasn't such a kasha. But since we have the teretz, so then we'll say the teretz. So the kasha wouldn't have been a wipeout. The Bai wouldn't have been bothered by the kasha. Rav surely wasn't bothered by the kasha. But Rashi says that if I can find you a chiddush that's not going to be a unnecessary pasuk, that it's pasuk went to the trouble of saying a pasuk beferish, even though you could have learned out with a kavacham, we'd rather say that. So Rashi points out that there is a chiddush over here, the fact that she could be sold. All this sugi was all agav. This sugi from today, the whole sugi we did about Yasachina main kasef, about Bagris, all things came as a side point. Our main point is about kiddushin kesef. We learned after this pasuk kiddushin kesef. However, the Gemara kasha that can't use this pasuk because it's already used up. It is drasha that even a nara, not only a Bulgaris, even a nara, another Gemara says about a beggar the islanders, that all this was a kasha. That you can't learn out Kedusha Kesef, it's used up already. If the Gemara answered there's an extra year, then that's how you can learn it out. That was yesterday's Gemara. So all this Gemara, if you would have want to make parentheses, today's Gemara was all in parentheses. And now we go back to Kedushin. Yesterday the Gemara asked, how do you know Kedusha Kesef? And the answer was, Yatzachina Mein Kasef, that it says by You know the pasuk. The Gemara is not a pasuk yet. That's going to be the Gemara now. The Gemara said, yesterday's Gemara said, because Gasachina main kasef, ain kasef, when a girl gets adulthood, so then she leaves her master, and the extra pasuk over there to say that also there's a way to leave the jurisdiction of the father, also with kesef, and it goes to the father. And now the Gemara brings what Gadi said. Right. And Rashi tells us that they only came out over there because we were interested in the word Kinyan, so we had to bring it down Agav in order to get the word Kinyan. It's interesting that from the pasuk over here, Ein Kasef, there's no Kinyan over there. Yeah, it's only going in this drasha that what the Gemara is going to say now. There's a drasha to learn out from yesterday's Parshas Kiseitze. We're going to learn out another source for Kiddushin Kesef, and that's called Kinyan, and that's how the Mishnah starts Isha Niknes. But the Gemara forgot about all that, just came in Agav and that base to say the word Kicha and Kinyan. And here the Gemara is now getting to this. This is the main sugya Rashi says. And here the Tana the Tana brings a source for Kedusha Kesef from the following pasuk, not like Rav. Rav brought it from Yotzachina Mein Kesef of Parshas Mishpatim, and the Tana brings it from the following. Tanya, Kiikach ish isha ubala, v'ayam lo simcha chen beinav, he must have wear vasdoha because of the Sefer Krisos. Yesterday's parsha, the parsha talk about Machzik B'Shasa, that a man took a woman and he had relations with her ubala. And if she doesn't find favor in his eyes because he found something shameful, so he gives her a get. And then it says if she marries somebody else and he gives her a get or dies, she can't go back to the first husband. That's called Machzik B'Shasa. So the pasuk introduced. This is where the pasuk talks about marriage. Place where the pasuk talks about marriage is this halacha. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Right. This pasuk is telling us when a man marries and he divorces afterwards, and then she marries somebody else, she can never go back to the first husband. That's what the pasuk is talking about. But Agav, in the discussion, so it says he married her, he divorced. So now we're concentrating on the first one. He married her. How did he marry her? That's what we want to know. We want to know Masechus Kedushin. Right. So we're ignoring the word Uba'ala now. And it's interesting why it says the word Uba'ala. It means as far as the Machzik B'Shasa, we had an end of Gittin, that Machzik B'Shasa Afilu Mina Erisin. What if somebody didn't do Nisun? He just did Erisin. And he didn't have relations. And he divorced his wife and she married somebody else and now he wants to take her back. Also the Lachas he can't, even from Erisin. So yesterday when we read the Parsha, I was very bothered. Since we just learned in Gittin that even Machzik B'Shasa Mina Erisin is also Asa, so this word is bothering me. Why do you say Uba'ala for? Because Allah is true even if it wouldn't have been Bala. So we're going to have at the bottom of the page, the Gemara will take care of that, at least in the Drash level. The Pshat level, it could be in the Pshat level that Machzik B'Shas is only Asim in Nisuin. But the Allah is that not so. The Allah is that's even Asim in Erison. So this word is in parentheses now. We're not focusing on this word with Bala. The Pasuk says if a man takes a woman, so that's how the Pasuk expresses marriage. If a man takes a woman, how did he take her? It says Kiyikach. A man took a woman. How did he take her? Ein kicha elo b'kesef. This is ready to go. The Brisa talking that the word kicha implies money. How do you know that? Where do you find that kicha means money? Abraham's telling Ephron, I'm giving the money for the purchase money of the field. Take it from me. So the word kicha means money. Take. What does take mean? Take for money. So the word is darshaning that the Brisa is darshaning that kikach ishisha means he took her for money. A little bit is the end of the Brisa, not end of the Brisa, not end of the Brisa. The Brisa is going to continue with a kasha. But as far as what the Gemara says, where we have a source for Kiddushin Kesef, here it says it's from Kicha Misdeya from. Agzer Shava, the word Kicha, Yikach, Kiikach, Kach, that it's done through money. And that's going to be the second source of Kiddushin Kesef. Now the Brisa has a kasha, you don't need a pasuk. Means we have ready two psukim. And the Gemara says, the Brisa says, we don't need any pasuk. I can know Kiddushin Kesef on my own. We have one pasuk of Yatzachina Ben Kasef, that was Rav's pasuk. The Brisa had a pasuk of Kikach Ishisha, Kicha Mistei Ephron. And the Brisa is asking, now you don't need a pasuk. Balo Dinu, I could have figured it out myself on my own. Ma Omar Bia She'ena Niknes Babia, Niknes Bekesef, Zusha Niknes Babia, and Odin Shetikna, Shetikana, whatever. bekesef. That if we know, once we know already that Amar Via can be redeemed. We didn't talk about this. We spoke about Amar Via going out when she becomes a gedola. When she becomes an adult, she goes free. But the pasuk also says Behevda. The pasuk says that there's a way to redeem an Amar Via. She can be released by paying by redeeming her. She was sold for money. If you go to the father, to the master, and you give money, you could redeem her. You could release her before she becomes an adult. That's a given. The pasuk says that it's possible to redeem a Amar Via. So, Ma Amar Via. That is no way. I'm sorry. I take it back. Please delete what I just said. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about not to redeem her. We're talking about how the master acquires her in the first place. How does the master acquire when a father is selling his daughter? How does the buyer acquire her? So that's with money. And the pasuk is going to be. They bring a pasuk mikasef miknaso. They bring a pasuk. Rashi brings a pasuk of the Gemara later on that it's possible to the way that the master acquires the Amar Bria is by money. So that's the Gemara's kavachomer. If you know that Amar Bria she'enu niknas b'bia, the master doesn't acquire her by having relations with her. He acquires her by giving money. But niknas b'kesef, zusha niknas b'bia, and odin shetik kind of b'kesef. If we know the Gemara is going now as a given that there is a kiddushin bia. The Gemara didn't tell us yet how we know, but that's taken as a given, which we'll see at the bottom of the page. That kiddushin bia we have a pasuk for. If a woman could be acquired with bia, so surely she should be able to be acquired with kesef, because you find that Amar Bia is acquired with kesef, who cannot be acquired with bia. So somebody who could be acquired with bia, she can be acquired with kesef. So then what is asking, you don't need a pasuk. Akash, I know these psukim. Everyone's looking for a source for kiddushin kesef. You don't need a pasuk because it's a svara. You can figure out kavachomer that if Amar Bria is acquired with kesef, so surely a wife is acquired with kesef. The Gemara tries to get out of it. Yivama tochiach. Your kavachomer is not true. You think that anybody that's acquired with bia can be acquired with kesef. I'll show you that you're wrong. Yivama is like that, not like that. Sheniknas b'bia, ve'eniknas b'kesef. That to acquire a yivama, if once the brother dies and now the yavam is supposed to acquire her, how does he acquire her? So it says in the Mishnah, only bia. There's no other way. So here you have a case of someone who's acquired with bia and not acquired with kesef. So you see a kavachomer is wrong. You thought from Amar Bia you could learn out that anybody that's acquired with bia surely is acquired with kesef. It's not true. A yivama is acquired with bia, not with kesef. So no kasha. So therefore you need a pasuk. But the Gemara continues, no, it's not. That's not a kasha. That's not a it's not a dichud. Mali yivama shekene niknes b'shtar. Tama bazu sheniknes b'shtar. The fact that yivama is not niknes b'kesef, I understand, because you see that there are other restrictions to yivama because she's not niknes b'shtar either. But a regular woman who we also know is niknes b'shtar means the Gemara is taking here that if we know all the other givens, the Gemara didn't tell us the givens yet. That's going to be later. But the Mishnah says that each niknes b'shloshet rochem b'kesef shtar b'bia. Now we're isolating. We're focusing only on kesef and shtar and bia. We know already. However, we know shtar and bia. So if you know shtar and bia, the Gemara thinks you should be able to learn out kesef without any drasha, because kavachomer from Amar Bia that's not niknes b'bia and is niknes b'kesef. Kavachomer a regular woman, and don't show me yivama. Yivama is very extreme because yivama is not impossible to be niknes only with bia, not shtar either. But a woman who could be niknes b'kesef and b'shtar, surely she should be able to be niknes b'bia. So, right, and holding by kasha right now. They have a couple chomer, so you don't need a pasuk. So now these next words don't seem to make any sense. Talmud lomar ki yikach ish. So you need a pasuk, and it's the wrong niggin. Means like Lev Yaakov was getting this the musical arrangement, and the way we you have a couple chomer, you don't need a pasuk. So yeah, you need a pasuk. Like what happened? She fooled us. So and the Gemara asked the kasha. There's a question that we had a brisa that means it could be that the Gemara is interjecting words in between the brisa, but the brisa that's what's happening. That the Gemara is asking. You're right, and the words in between are not part of the brisa. Okay, that's it. If you look at the brisa, you'll see how the brisa says it. But the Maisa, like Yaakov hit it, that we're holding in the middle of a kasha, and the brisa makes it sound like everything's fine. That's you need a pasuk, everything's good. And the Gemara jumps up. What are you talking about? Alam alikra. That's what we're holding by a kasha now. Don't tell me everything's good. He said, you don't need a pasuk. We just learned it out from a kavachomer. So we're holding by a kasha. So Rashi is going to take over and say why the kavachomer is not a kavachomer. and it's not part of the brisa. And if you look at the brisa and the Tosefta, you might see over there what the brisa said, what it didn't say, and everything will be good. But as far as we're concerned, Rashi can explain why the Kal V'chomer is not good. Kal V'chomer was learned from Mama Avriya that if she can be acquired with money and not with bia, so a woman who we know already is nicknamed be shtar and bia, surely should be able to be nicknamed be kesef, and you don't need the pasuk. The kash is not a kash in the first place. The answer to the kash is that the Kal V'chomer in the first place was not a Kal V'chomer. Mecha kamaisisla, where you want to learn it out from? That's what you wanted to say. You wanted to learn out that if Amavriya is acquired with kesef, her master buys it with money, so Kal V'chomer that a woman can be acquired with money. But Mala Amavriya, she can yotzo b'kesef. She can yotzo b'kesef. That this, not only is she acquired with money, she's also redeemed with money. That's what I brought in about the hefda. I jumped the gun before. I was talking about the redeeming. Till now we're talking about the buying. So Amavriya, how did she get freed? One of the ways to get freed is with money. That you redeem her, you give money to the master and say she's going free now. So since she leaves with money, so then it's mistaber, then it fits that she's also acquired with money. But Toma Bazush any also Bekesef, a regular woman, she doesn't get freed by money. There's no money to get a woman should get divorced. She doesn't give money in order to free herself. There's no concept of money by divorce. Not that she gives the husband money, not that the husband gives her money. It's so since the exit is not with money, so then it's not so simple that the entrance can be with money. So therefore, you can't learn it out from Amavriya. That's why you need the pasuk to say that there is a way to acquire a woman with money. So what do we do so far? Over here, this section of the Gemara, it brought down a brisa that said that the source of kiddushin kesef is the pasuk kikach yeshisha kicha kicha misleyefron. And between the Mar Kasha, you could have learned it out from Amavriya, and the answer is you can. You can't learn it out from Amavriya, even though you know that Amavriya is acquired with money. And you might think Kal V'chomer, she's not acquired with bia, and here she's acquired with bia and shtar, and you might have said Kal V'chomer kesef. No, it's not a Kal V'chomer. Not a Kal V'chomer because Amavriya doesn't leave with kesef, but a woman who leaves with kesef. I'm sorry, because she leaves with kesef, but a woman does not get divorced with money. Maybe she can't be acquired with the money, so you need a pasuk. So that was the Gemara today. That a woman is acquired with kesef because kika cheshisha, kicha misleyefron. Now we go back to the kasha that's bothering everybody. We had a whole daf yesterday. In kasef, we learned a different pasuk to say. Rav said a pasuk to learn out that a woman is acquired with kesef because in kesef that it says by Amavriya that she goes out in kasef in an extra pasuk. You learn adyesh kesef b'makom that when when a woman leaves her father's jurisdiction, so the way to do it is with money. So that's the source to say kiddushin kesef. Why do you have to have two psukim? That's the Gemara's kasha. One is Rav, and one is a brisa. And the Gemara's going to say you need both. The Gemara's not going to say that they're arguing. The Gemara's going to say you need both of them. Either one alone wouldn't have been enough. There's new Gemara now. You need the Rav's pasuk. The kiddushin kesef. So what do you need two psukim for? So you need both of them. You need Yasachina min kasef and you need kikach eshisha. Our pasuk alone, the Bryce's pasuk alone, kikach eshisha kicha misleyefron have amena kiddushin diyavla bal didahav. It does say this kiddushin kesef, but it doesn't say who gets it. Who gets the kiddushin kesef? You might have thought that even if she's still a nara, you might think that the money goes to her, and the truth is it goes to the father. That's why you have to have yesterday's pasuk. Yasachina min kasef yesh kesef lo denacher, as the one explained yesterday on the top of Gimel and Aleph, that it goes to the one whose jurisdiction she's leaving. That the money that the husband gives, the kiddushin, the yav labal, the money that the husband gives her, the husband gives to the kala. You might think she keeps it, and the truth is not that it if she's less than 12 and a half, it goes to the father. So that's what the pasuk in Kasef told us yesterday. Pasuk one of Yasachina in Kasef, but we learned out that it goes to the father. How did we learn it goes to the father? That's the type of Gimel of an Aleph. It says Mistavra, similar to the way that when she leaves the jurisdiction of the master, the money is given to the master. So when she leaves the owner of her jurisdiction, so too when she leaves the jurisdiction of her father, the money goes to the father. So that's how you know that the money goes to the father. So it's true. Kiddushin kesef alone, you would have known from kicha misleyefron. But the way that you know that it goes to the father, that's why you need yesterday's pasuk for. Why is not everything included in yesterday's pasuk already? Because Rahman of Yasachinam have amena hechad diyava ihi Lididei, the kitshatu, have a kiddushin. Das Rahmana ki ikach, below ki sikach, ki tukach. Question I read the last word. But the point is going to be now, who gives the money? It says by Amavriya, she goes out without any money. And the diak is, but there's someplace else, by leaving jurisdiction of the father, there is money. Yesh kesef. Yesh kesef doesn't say who gives the money. Who gives the money? So there is money. The father's going to get money. But who does he get money from? So you might have thought that even if she would give the money to her father, she'd be in order to marry somebody, maybe it also would be a way to marry. There's a girl who's 12 years old, and she wants to get married, and she has to leave her father's jurisdiction, so to speak. That's how that's what we're looking at it. That she's leaving her father's jurisdiction, so the father gets money for that. So the real way is that the chassan is going to give money to the father, and that's how he's going to marry the daughter and take her out of the father's jurisdiction. But you might have thought that she also could give money. She can give money to her father in order to leave his jurisdiction to get into the husband's jurisdiction. Kamash Malan, that doesn't work. That there's no such thing. That the husband is the one, the husband is the one who has to give the money. The way it says in the words, now Rashi is a little bit extreme. Rashi says that as if she would be marrying the chassan. She would be giving money to the chassan to get out of the father's jurisdiction. And Taisha says, surely there's no such thing that she's Mekadosh him. There's no such thing as the woman marrying the man. The man marries the woman. And Taisha is the whole going back to the beginning of the Masechta. Kiddushin means that she's like hektish, us with everybody else. And when a man marries, he's not us with anybody else. He's allowed to marry other women also. So Rashi uses the word. The words here say that if she gave money to him, to the husband, and she would Mekadosh him, you might have thought that that's a Kiddushin. So Taisha doesn't like that. She's Mekadosh him. The woman is not Mekadosh the woman, the husband. He doesn't become us to marry anybody else. So Taisha says that she's Mekadesh, she wants to be Mekadesh herself to him. Not that she's Mekadesh him, but she's Mitkadeshet to him. That she's the one who's marrying herself to her husband. You might have thought that she could have done it by giving the money. To who? The Gemara says Lididei, giving money to him. The simple words in the Gemara sound like, and Rashi and Taisha both agree that you might have thought that the woman, the daughter, could give money to her father. Could give money to the chassan in order to leave the father's wishes. Rashi said that she's Mekadesh him. Taisha says she's Mitkadesh to him. But who does the money go to? So the Gemara seems to say that she would give the money to the chassan. You might have thought that that's good. Taisha says that can't be. It's Taisha we have first he argues with Rashi about Hariyata Makudashli. Taisha says it can't be. Hariyata Makudashli for sure is not good. It has to be Hariyani Makudashas Lach. That's one thing Taisha argues in Rashi. And then the Taisha says that even though it says in the Gemara she gives it to him, lav dafka, she surely doesn't give it to the husband. She has to give it. The father's the one who's going to get the money. But the point is that she said, you might have thought that if the daughter would give money to her father and say, I want to be mitkadesha to the chassan, you might think that it works, but Mashmallah doesn't work. End of the Gemara, just to sum it up, the Gemara has two psukim for Kiddusha Kesef. One is Yasachinim and Kasef, one is Kika Cheshisha. For sure, the simpler one is going to be Kika Cheshisha, that you learn that it means money. The Gemara says that wouldn't have been enough because you might have thought that you might not have known that the money goes to the father if she's only a Naira. So you need the pasuk Yasachinim and Kasef that it goes to the father. The pasuk alone, Yasachinim and Kasef, also once you have it, so you need it, tell it goes to the father, but the Maisi you see Kiddusha Kesef also. So the Gemara says you would have thought that as long as the father gets the money, even if daughter is going to be giving him money in order that she should become Mitkadesh to somebody, you might think also it's a way to marry. Mashmalan, ki yikach. Yikach means that the man has to give them, the man is the one who's taking her. Now, how do you read the last word? So according to Rashi, v'lo ki tikach, that she shouldn't take the husband takes her. That says, v'lo ki tukach. She shouldn't be taken. She shouldn't be taken. Maybe that's not what she's going to learn. That of course she's marrying herself off to her husband, and that's also not good. The husband is the one who has to give the money to the father, not that, or to her if she's already a Bulgaris, and not that she gives money. End of Gemara of Kiddusha Kesef. We learned that the source of Kiddusha Kesef. Gemara goes further. How do you know? That's the sugya. We finished the whole sugya. We know Kiddusha Kesef. You need two psukim in order to know Kiddusha Kesef. One is Yasachinim and Kesef, and one is from Kika Cheshisha. The Pasha Pshat surely would be Kika Cheshisha, Kicha Kicha Mr. from yesterday's Pasha. Next Gemara, Uba Allah. So this is what we started talking about. The same pasuk, mamish the same pasuk. I'll just scroll down again. It says in the pasuk, Kika Cheshisha Uba Allah, The whole pasuk about Masik Rishasa. And I just mentioned that the word Ubala seems to be very hard because it doesn't have to be that he had relations with her. Even if he didn't have relations with her, it's going to be also to take back his grusha. If he divorced her, he married her and no relations. He just gave her a ring and he divorced her and then she married somebody else. He's not allowed to take it back either. So this pasuk Ubala, this word Ubala is very, very strange in the pshat level. In the pshat level, you might say Masik Rishasa is only from the Suin after he married her, but that's not true. So halachically. So what do you do with this word Ba'Allah? So the Gemara is going to say, it's coming to tell you, Kedusha Bia. This word here, yesterday's parsha also. Yesterday's parsha was a packed parsha. Yesterday's parsha was a packed parsha. They said it had 74 mitzvahs yesterday. 74 mitzvahs. 74 mitzvahs. I heard somebody I didn't hear him, but I heard about him. He listed them all off. Somebody asked, what are the 74 mitzvahs? And the parsha, he listed them all off. So this pasuk of Uva Allah is coming to teach you Kedusha Bia. Mamish that pasuk. Kikach ishi Uva Allah. So kikach, we learn kicha usually means kesef, but the fact that it says Uva Allah says that also Bia is another way to acquire a woman. And that's where we learn Kedusha Bia from. It comes out according to what the Gemara is saying. Kikach ishi Uva Allah means Oba Allah. Either one, not both of them. You don't have to have both. There could be kikach with money, and there could be also Kedusha Bia also. And Machavusha pointed out, looking at Bar Kaplan, that's how he translates it. He says or. He puts in the word or, not and. Kikach ishisha ubala, that he married her or he had relations with her. That's going to be the point to the Gemara. Point. It's getting bigger over here. Might as well enjoy the Ubala, Malamish, Niklas Bavia. This is where you learn out. You know what I did? Okay. This is the source you learn out that a woman can be acquired with beer, kedusha beer. Now again, the Rice is going to ask, you don't need a pasuk. I can know it by myself. Kavachomer, same idea. Hello, dinu. You have a kavachomer. What do you have to have a pasuk for? Ah, you buy mashay niklas bekesef, niklas beer, zusha niklas bekesef, and adin niklas beer. How is it easier to acquire, with kesef or with beer? So is that the way to say it? Yivama cannot be acquired with money, and this woman is acquired with money. And so we're making kavachomer between a regular kedusha isha and yibum. That what the Gemara is going to ask, anything that could acquire a yivama could surely acquire a woman for marriage. Yibum in marriage, kesef cannot acquire a yivama, but it could acquire a wife. So it's easier to acquire a wife than a yivama. And by yivama, bia does work. That's the way you acquire a yivama. So kavachomer, you should be able to acquire a wife with bia. Means we're learning out kiddushin from yibum. If whatever yibum could do, kiddushin could do, because you see that there are things that yibum cannot do and kiddushin can. So kiddushin is stronger. It's easier to marry than to do yibum. So whatever yibum could accomplish, however you accomplish yibum, surely you could accomplish a marriage. So why is that not enough? What are you pasuk for? I should learn it out from yibum that if a yibama could be acquired with via surely a wife.
The whole purpose to be allowed such a marriage is for procreation. There's no other reason.
Maybe we're talking about the Kenyan, the way to acquire her.
Yes.
Maybe. But so that's a kasha. Means you don't need a holding out with the kasha. You don't need a pasuk. You don't need a pasuk. It should be a kavachomer from Yibum. If Mark tries to answer the kasha, Amar Riya Tochia. I'll show you that your kavachomer is not true. Not everybody who's niknes bekesef is niknes bebia. She niknes bekesef and niknes bebia. Your kavachomer was that anybody, and maybe I read the kavachomer wrong, that anybody that I said the kavachomer was from a yivama to a marriage. It says here about kesef and bia. Maybe I said it wrong. Because kesef. So the Gemara understands the kavachomer is from kesef to via, not from yivama to marriage. Here we're saying that anybody who is acquired, the more thinks kavachomer was anybody who could be acquired with kesef, surely could acquired with bia. So I'll show you somebody like that. I'll show you somebody who is acquired with kesef and not acquired with bia. Amar bia, that the master buys her with money, but he doesn't acquire her with bia. The one when he's selling a daughter, it isn't that the master is going to have relations in order to acquire her. So we think we answered the kasha. The kasha was the pasuk you learn out from Ivama, from Kiddushay. You see that the bia is a way kesef doesn't work and bia does work. So if kesef works, if we have a given that by once we do know Kiddushay kesef by a woman, so kavachomer bia, the Gemara says, I'll show you that's not kavachomer is wrong because Amar bia is acquired with kesef and not with bia. So don't tell me that any time that there's a Kedusha Kesef to show these Kedusha Bia. So we answered the kasha. At this point, we understand why I need a pasuk. You wouldn't be able to learn out from the Kavachomer. But the Gemara is going to challenge this Amar Bia. Ma'al Amar Bia, She'en Kinyan L'Shamishos. Tamar Bazu She'Kinyan L'Shamishos. The Gemara wants to put the Amar Bia on the side, which was a little surprising. We didn't do it till now. And Amar Bia has nothing to do with relations. Amar Bia, at this point, of course, afterwards it could be Yiyud. At the end of the Amar Bia, it could be that the purpose at the end is going to be that the master is going to marry her. Like it says, that there is such a process, either he or to his son, takes the maidservant as a wife. But at this point, it's only for a maidservant. So maybe the reason why it doesn't work bia is because the acquisition at this point is not for marriage, it's for servitude. That's why there's no bia. But over here, the woman, both by yibum and by marriage, is for marriage. So maybe over there, the bia is good. So at this point, we're holding at a kasha. The Bryce said you need a pasuk to learn out kedusha bia. I'm holding by a kasha. Now that you don't, you should be able to learn out with a couple of homer from yibum. That if yibum is acquired with bia, so surely a woman who has kedusha kesef could surely be acquired with bia. And then the Bryce for marriage. No, the word neshama was like l'shem. For the purpose, for the sake of marriage. So the Amar Bia is not taken for marriage. That's why it doesn't work Bia. But a woman who's taken for marriage, so you should be able to learn the Kavachomer from Yivama that Bia is a way to acquire her. So again, Leib Yaakov's problem would arise the same thing as before. They're holding by a kasha, that you don't need a pasuk, you can learn out with a Kavachomer. And the Bryce pulls the first one and says, oh, you need a pasuk. You need the pasuk. Just learn out that's Kedusha Bia. And that doesn't make sense. We're in the middle of a kasha and you make it as if everything's good. And that's the more jumps up again. What are you pasuk for? That's what holding by a kasha. We just learned it out from a kavachomer from Yivama. You don't need a pasuk. So why are you telling me everything's good? So Rashi again is going to come to the rescue and say why the kavachomer is not good. Because I can say that the kasha, that the kavachomer is not a good kavachomer. Means we wanted to learn out from Yibam that if a Yavama could be acquired with Bia, surely a regular wife could be acquired with Yibam, but with Bia, no. What was it Rashi wanted to learn out from Yibam? From a Yavama, that a Yavama is acquired with Bia. It's not a kasha. There's already a bond. When a woman falls to Yibam, it's because she already had a husband who died, and now this is his brother. So she's bonded already to the brother-in-law, and that's why the Bia is what makes them acquires her to her brother-in-law, to the Yavam. But the woman, that's nothing to do with Yavam Stam. Out of the street, he wants to marry somebody. There's no bond. There is no bond between him and this. So you don't have a right that Yibi is good enough. That's why you need a person. So you do need. So today's Gemara, to sum it up, is Yikach Ish Isha Ubala. Yikach is going to be for Kesef, and Allah is going to tell you Bia. That's how you learn out. From this person, you learn out both to be Kesef and to be Bia. Shtar is the next tomorrow's Gemara. Let's say cover the next page. Hamdav is introducing tomorrow's Gemara. Every 9 shaf to Shtar. That's tomorrow's Gemara. Right.
Remind that we have to collect some money for today.